Snow fell softly over Rockefeller Plaza, blanketing the city in pristine white. Among thousands of glittering lights, Victoria Hayes sat motionless in her wheelchair, watching families laugh and take photos around the magnificent Christmas tree. A solitary tear traced down her cheek, dissolving into the snow as if it had never existed. 20 minutes earlier, she had commanded the attention of Hayes Enterprises' entire board of directors. Now she commanded nothing but her own loneliness. The Hayes Tower executive boardroom had buzzed with energy that morning. Victoria's presentation on fourth quarter projections was flawless. As always, the youngest vice president in company history navigated complex financial data with the precision of a surgeon, her wheelchair positioned at the head of the gleaming mahogany table. "And that concludes our analysis," Victoria said, her voice steady and authoritative. "The Hayes Foundation initiative will not only generate substantial tax benefits, but position us as industry leaders in corporate social responsibility." Richard Hayes, CEO and Victoria's father, nodded curtly. "Efficient as always, Victoria. Not well done. Not I'm proud. Just acknowledgement of efficiency, the currency in which their relationship traded." As the board members filed out, muttering congratulations, Victoria remained, staring at the Manhattan skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. 3 years ago, before the accident, she would have celebrated such a successful presentation. Now triumph tasted hollow. Her assistant Michael appeared at the doorway. "Your car is ready whenever you'd like to leave, Miss Gordy Hayes." "Thank you," Victoria replied, wheeling herself toward the door. "I think I'll stop by Rockefeller Center on the way home. Could you have Daniel wait?" Michael's brow furrowed with concern. "It's starting to snow and the forecast says—" "I'll be fine," she cut him off with practiced firmness. "Just an hour." The pristine, white marble lobby of Hayes Tower bustled with holiday activity. Executives rushing to lunch meetings, tourists admiring the 15-foot Christmas tree in the atrium. Victoria navigated her wheelchair with practiced precision, ignoring the fleeting glances of pity that followed her. In the executive elevator heading down, she closed her eyes, shoulders dropping slightly. For just a moment, the mask slipped. Across town in Queens, James Morgan flipped a perfectly golden pancake as Emma, his 7-year-old daughter, carefully colored a Christmas card at their small kitchen table. "Daddy, does Santa know we moved apartments again?" Emma asked, not looking up from her work. James smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "Of course he does, sweetheart. Santa knows everything." "Good," Emma nodded seriously, "because I really want that art set with the special colors." James set a plate of pancakes shaped like reindeer in front of her. "Well, you've been exceptionally good this year. I think Santa noticed." He didn't mention that he'd been working extra weekend shifts to afford that art set. After Sarah died 3 years ago, cancer, no insurance, medical bills that devoured their savings, Christmas had become both sacred and painful. The tiny apartment kitchen was a far cry from the spacious home they'd once owned when James was senior audio systems engineer at Hayes Enterprises, designing cutting-edge sound technology. Now he installed sound equipment for corporate events, working for a small technical services company. "Daddy, we need to hurry. I can't be late for show practice," Emma announced, maple syrup clinging to her chin. 20 minutes later, after dropping Emma at school, James arrived at his company's warehouse. His boss, Frank, waved him over, coffee in hand. "Morgan, got a big one for you today. Hayes Tower. They're prepping for some charity gala. Full audio setup in the grand ballroom." James froze. "Hayes Tower? Can't Kevin take that one?" Frank shook his head. "Client specifically requested our best technician. That's you. Problem?" James swallowed hard. "No, no problem." 2 hours later, James stood in the opulent grand ballroom of Hayes Tower, unpacking speakers and running cables. The space was being transformed for a Christmas charity event. Workers hanging crystal snowflakes from the ceiling, florists arranging elaborate centerpieces. As he calibrated a microphone, the elevator doors opened. James looked up, and his heart stopped. Victoria Hayes wheeled into the ballroom, elegant in a tailored navy suit, her posture regal despite the wheelchair. She didn't notice him, too busy reviewing details with an event coordinator. James ducked his head, continuing his work with trembling hands. 3 years had passed since Richard Hayes had fired him for insubordination, for insisting that the building's emergency sound system had critical flaws. 2 weeks after his termination, with no severance and a medical insurance gap, his wife's cancer had been diagnosed too late, and now here was Hayes's daughter, the princess of the empire that had destroyed his life. Later that afternoon, Victoria sat alone at Rockefeller Plaza, the Christmas crowd swirling around her like snow. She had dismissed her driver needing solitude. The magnificent tree towered above, its lights blurring through her tears. Nearby, a little girl in a red coat tugged her father's sleeve. "Daddy, why is that lady crying?" James followed his daughter's gaze and froze. Even from a distance, he recognized Victoria Hayes. "Emma, we should leave her alone. She probably wants privacy." But Emma was already moving, slipping from his grasp with a determination only a 7-year-old could muster. "Emma, wait!" James called, but she was already approaching Victoria. Victoria looked up, startled, as a small figure appeared before her. The little girl held out a candy cane striped in red and white. "Hi," Emma said brightly. "You look sad. Do you want this? It's peppermint. They're the best kind." Victoria stared at the child, then at the candy cane, completely disarmed. When was the last time someone had approached her without agenda, pity, or deference? Thank you," she whispered, accepting the candy. James caught up, slightly out of breath. "I'm so sorry," he began, not meeting Victoria's eyes. "It's fine," Victoria said, studying his face. Something about him seemed vaguely familiar. "She's sweet," Emma beamed. "I'm Emma. This is my dad. He fixes sounds." Victoria smiled genuinely for the first time that day. "Fixes sounds? He makes music and talking come out of speakers," Emma explained proudly. "He's really good at it." James finally looked directly at Victoria, praying she wouldn't recognize him. "We should let you enjoy the tree in peace, Ms. Hayes," she supplied. "Victoria Hayes." James nodded stiffly, as if hearing her name for the first time. James Morgan. Suddenly, the lights surrounding Rockefeller Plaza flickered and went dark. The crowd gasped collectively. Emma grabbed her father's hand. "Daddy, fix it," she whispered urgently. James looked around, spotted a nearby electrical panel. Without thinking, he approached it, examined the connections, and identified the problem immediately. Victoria watched, intrigued, as James worked with swift, confident movements, communicating with security personnel with unexpected authority. Within minutes, the plaza lights blazed back to life, and the crowd erupted in applause. James returned, brushing snow from his jacket. "That was impressive," Victoria noted, studying him more carefully. "Just a simple circuit overload," he shrugged. "Nothing complicated." Emma tugged her father's sleeve again. "Daddy, can we invite her to my Christmas show? She looks like she needs Christmas magic." James tensed visibly, but before he could respond, Victoria smiled at Emma. "What Christmas show?" "At my school tomorrow night. I'm a singing star," Emma declared proudly. "You should come. Everyone needs Christmas songs when they're sad." Victoria's eyes met James's, and something unspoken passed between them. A moment of genuine human connection that transcended their unseen history. "Emma," James began gently. "Miss Harmony, Hayes is probably very busy." "I'd love to come," Victoria interrupted, surprising herself. "If that's all right with your father." Before James could answer, his phone chimed. He checked it and his expression tightened. "Emma, we need to go. Your babysitter can only stay until 6. He hesitated, then reluctantly handed Victoria his business card. The school address is Lincoln Elementary on 34th Street. Show starts at 7, but please don't feel obligated. As they walked away, Victoria stared at the card in her hand. James Morgan, audio systems technician. Something nagged at her memory. Where had she heard that name before? The Hayes Enterprises executive offices were silent at midnight. Victoria sat alone in her father's office, the blue light of the computer screen illuminating her face. She'd come back after hours, using her executive access to search the company archives. James Morgan. The name had haunted her since their encounter. Now she knew why. The personnel file displayed on screen told the story. Senior audio systems engineer, terminated December 2021, just weeks before her accident. Reason: insubordination, violation of chain of command. Victoria dug deeper, finding James's original safety report. The technical analysis was meticulous, warning of critical flaws in the emergency sound system, flaws that could cause electrical fires under certain conditions. Then she found it. The incident report from December 18, 2021. Electrical fire, 40th floor sound control room. Cause: system overload. Injuries: 1. Richard Hayes, smoke inhalation and minor burns. Victoria's breath caught. The same day, her father had been hospitalized briefly, the day before her own accident, and there, listed as first responder, James Morgan. The pieces fell into place with terrible clarity. James had warned about the system flaw. Her father had dismissed it. The system failed exactly as predicted. James had saved her father's life and been fired for his trouble. 2 weeks later, Victoria had her accident, and the whole incident was buried under the crushing weight of that new tragedy. Lincoln Elementary's auditorium buzzed with excitement. Parents clutched programs and smartphones, ready to document every moment of the Christmas pageant. James sat in the third row, checking his watch nervously. He'd been distracted all day, wondering if Victoria would actually appear, hoping she wouldn't. The less connection to the Hayes family, the better. Just as the lights dimmed, a stir near the entrance caught his attention. Victoria wheeled herself down the center aisle, elegant in a deep green dress. Several heads turned, recognizing the Hayes heiress. James tensed as she approached his row. Without a word, she positioned her wheelchair in the aisle beside his seat. "I wasn't sure you'd come," he whispered as the curtain rose. "I keep my promises," she replied simply. Emma appeared on stage with her class, dressed as a twinkling star, her voice clear and sweet as they sang Silent Night. James watched her with unmistakable pride. Victoria glanced sideways, studying his profile. The tenderness in his expression revealed everything about him as a father. How had this man, who clearly cherished his daughter, who had saved her father's life, become collateral damage in the Hayes corporate machine? After the performance, Emma rushed to them, still wearing her star costume. "You came!" she exclaimed, hugging Victoria spontaneously. "Did you like our songs? Did they make you happy?" Victoria laughed, genuinely touched. "They were beautiful, Emma. You were the brightest star up there." James watched this interaction, conflicted emotions crossing his face. As parents and children filtered out, Victoria turned to James. "Could we talk somewhere, please?" 30 minutes later, they sat in a quiet diner 3 blocks from the school. Emma colored a placemat at the counter while a kind waitress kept her supplied with hot chocolate. "You know who I am," Victoria stated plainly once they were alone in a booth. James met her gaze steadily. "Yes, and you know my father. I worked for Hayes Enterprises 3 years ago." "You saved his life," Victoria said quietly, "after he ignored your warnings about the sound system." James's cup froze halfway to his lips. "How did you—" "I found the reports. All of them." Victoria's eyes were intense. 2 weeks after my father fired you, I had my accident. I never knew about any of it until now. James set his cup down carefully. Ms. Hayes, Victoria, please. Victoria, he corrected, his voice tight. What exactly do you want from me? The truth, and perhaps a chance to right a wrong. James looked over at Emma, then back to Victoria. The truth is, your father valued the bottom line over safety. I warned him, and he didn't listen. When the system failed exactly as I predicted, I happened to be in the building, clearing out my office. I pulled him out of that room because any decent human would. The next day, he made sure I couldn't get another job in the industry. Victoria flinched. What do you mean? Word got around that I was difficult. No references, no recommendations. By the time my wife was diagnosed with cancer 2 weeks later, we had no insurance. The rest, his voice faltered. The rest you can imagine. Victoria's eyes filled with tears. I'm so sorry. I don't want your pity. It's not pity, she said firmly. It's accountability. My family owes you a debt that can never be repaid. James shook his head. I don't want anything from the Hayes family. I've rebuilt my life. Emma is healthy and happy. That's all that matters now. Victoria studied him for a long moment. The Christmas charity gala at Hayes Tower. It's my project. We need a senior technical consultant, someone who understands acoustic design and safety protocols. Are you offering me a job? James asked incredulously. I'm offering you what you deserve, a chance to use your expertise again. Good pay, your name on the program as lead technical consultant. Your father would never allow it. Victoria's expression hardened with determination. My father doesn't run the foundation. I do. The preparations for the Hayes Foundation Christmas Gala transformed the grand ballroom over the next week. Victoria had created the event to benefit children with disabilities and their families, a cause that had become personal after her accident. James worked alongside her, initially reluctant but gradually engaged by the technical challenges. His expertise was evident in everything he touched, from the innovative acoustic design to the specialized sound system for hearing-impaired attendees. They developed an unexpected rhythm together, Victoria's strategic vision complemented by James's technical brilliance. Emma often joined them after school, drawing pictures for the event programs or testing the special headphones for children with sensory sensitivities. One evening, as they worked late, Victoria watched James adjust a speaker setup. You should be running your own company, she observed. Your designs are revolutionary. James smiled faintly. That was the plan once, before everything happened. It could still happen. He shook his head. Dreams change. Now I just want Emma to have opportunities I couldn't give her before. Victoria wheeled closer. What happened to your wife? I can't imagine how difficult that must have been. James was quiet for a long moment. Sarah was diagnosed with stage 4 ovarian cancer. With proper screening and early detection, he stopped, composing himself. We had a good life, you know. Not wealthy, but comfortable. After I lost my job, we lost everything so quickly. How do you not hate us? Victoria asked softly. How do you not hate me? I did for a while, James admitted, but hatred takes energy I needed for Emma. And you weren't responsible for your father's decisions. Before Victoria could respond, the ballroom doors burst open. Richard Hayes strode in, his expression thunderous. Victoria, he said sharply, a word, now. She wheeled herself toward her father, chin raised defiantly. Whatever you have to say, you can say it here. Richard glanced at James with barely concealed contempt. Why is this man working on your event? Do you have any idea who he is? I know exactly who he is, Victoria replied evenly. James Morgan was one of your most brilliant engineers. He identified a critical safety flaw that you ignored. When it caused a fire that nearly killed you, he pulled you out at risk to himself. and you repaid him by destroying his career. Richard's face paled. That's not... It's exactly what happened, Victoria continued, her voice gaining strength. I've read the reports, Dad. All of them. What I don't understand is how you live with yourself, knowing what your actions cost this man and his family. The ballroom fell silent. Event staff pretended to be busy while watching the drama unfold from the corners of their eyes. Richard turned to James. Mr. Morgan, I'd like to speak with my daughter privately. James nodded stiffly. I'll check on the lighting in the east section. He walked away, his back rigid with tension. As soon as James was out of earshot, Richard rounded on Victoria. You had no right to go digging into confidential personnel matters. And you had no right to bury the truth, she fired back. That man saved your life, Dad. And because of your pride, his wife died without proper medical care. Richard flinched as if struck. You can't possibly blame me for... Actions have consequences, Victoria interrupted. Your decision had consequences that destroyed lives, and now you have a chance to make it right. By what? Giving him charity? Victoria's eyes flashed. By giving him justice, respect, the career he deserves. She paused, then continued more softly. Dad, when I had my accident, you moved heaven and earth to get me the best care, the best opportunities. You did it because you love me. But what about everyone else? Don't they deserve the same chance? Richard stared at his daughter, something shifting in his expression. For the first time, he wasn't seeing the broken girl in the wheelchair. He was seeing the woman she had become. If you fire him, Victoria said with quiet intensity, I'll resign as vice president, and I'll tell the board exactly why. Richard Hayes had faced down billionaire rivals and hostile takeovers without blinking, but his daughter's ultimatum left him speechless. You would choose him over your own family, he finally asked. Victoria shook her head. I'm choosing integrity. I'm choosing to be someone I can respect when I look in the mirror. She paused. Isn't that what you always taught me a Hayes should be? Richard Hayes sat alone in his office at 2 a.m., staring at his computer screen. Victoria's words echoed in his mind as he reviewed the incident report from 3 years ago. The security footage played silently before him, smoke billowing from the sound control room, himself stumbling, disoriented. Then James Morgan appearing, pulling him to safety moments before the room was engulfed in flames. Richard closed his eyes, the truth he'd avoided for 3 years, finally inescapable. He'd been wrong, catastrophically wrong. At dawn, Richard stood outside a modest apartment building in Queens, gathering his courage before climbing to the 3rd floor. He knocked firmly on apartment 3B. James opened the door, surprise quickly replaced by wariness. Mr. Hayes, may I come in? Please. The word please felt foreign on Richard's tongue. James hesitated, then stepped aside. The apartment was small but tidy, children's drawings covering the refrigerator. Emma was still asleep, her bedroom door closed. I'll be direct, Richard began, standing stiffly in the center of the living room. I was wrong about the sound system. I was wrong to terminate you. And I was deeply wrong in how I handled the aftermath. James remained silent, arms crossed over his chest. The truth is, Richard continued, his voice roughening, I couldn't admit the mistake because then I'd have to admit that my pride nearly cost me my life. And it's easier to silence the messenger than confront your own failings. Why are you telling me this now? James asked quietly. Because my daughter had the courage I lacked, Richard admitted, and because I owe you a debt I can never fully repay. Richard reached into his coat and removed an envelope. This isn't charity, it's restitution. A position at Hayes Enterprises, Director of Safety Systems. Full benefits, retroactive to your termination date. That includes the medical coverage that should have been available to your wife. James stared at the envelope but didn't take it. Money doesn't change what happened. No, Richard agreed. Nothing can change the past, but perhaps we can change the future. He paused. My daughter sees something in you that I was too arrogant to recognize. She's willing to risk everything, her position, her relationship with me, to stand up for what's right. She didn't learn that from me. I wish she had. The silence stretched between them, 3 years of pain and loss suspended in the quiet morning air. Finally, James spoke. Emma has a Christmas gift she's been working on for Victoria. She'd be heartbroken if she couldn't give it to her. Richard understood the implicit acceptance. The gala is tomorrow night. I hope you'll both be there. As Richard turned to leave, James called after him. Mr. Hayes, I didn't save your life for recognition or reward. I did it because it was the right thing to do. Richard nodded, humbled. I know. That's why I was wrong. And you were right. The Hayes Foundation Christmas Gala transformed the grand ballroom into a winter wonderland. Crystal snowflakes hung from the ceiling, reflecting the soft blue lighting. Families of children with disabilities mingled with New York's elite, the atmosphere warm with holiday spirit. Victoria, resplendent in a silver gown, greeted guests from her wheelchair, which she had decorated with subtle twinkling lights for the occasion. Her smile was genuine as she introduced parents of disabled children to potential donors. James supervised the technical elements. Dressed in a suit Emma had helped select, the little girl darted among the guests in her red velvet dress, proudly telling anyone who would listen that her daddy had designed the special headphones for children with hearing sensitivities. As the formal program began, Victoria took the stage, her wheelchair positioned behind the podium. Welcome to the first annual Hayes Foundation Inclusive Christmas Celebration, she began, her voice clear and confident. Tonight isn't just about raising money. It's about recognizing that every person, regardless of ability, deserves to be seen, heard, and valued. From the side of the stage, James watched her with undisguised admiration. In just 2 weeks, they had created something remarkable together, a bridge between their separate worlds. After the speeches and performances, Richard Hayes approached the microphone. The room quieted in anticipation. The CEO rarely spoke at charitable events. 3 years ago, Richard began, his voice uncharacteristically humble, I made a terrible mistake. I ignored a safety warning from one of our most talented engineers because addressing it would have been expensive and inconvenient. When that system failed exactly as he predicted, this same engineer saved my life at risk to his own. And I repaid him by terminating his employment. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Victoria watched her father with widening eyes, never expecting this public confession. Tonight, I want to announce the creation of the Morgan Innovation Scholarship, Richard continued. This fund will support the education of children with disabilities and children who have lost parents to illness. It honors the integrity of James Morgan, who rejoins Hayes Enterprises as our new Director of Safety Systems. The applause was thunderous. James stood frozen in shock as Emma tugged his hand excitedly. Daddy, that's your name. You're famous now. As the formal program concluded, snow began falling heavily outside the floor-to-ceiling windows. The weather alert on James's phone flashed a blizzard warning. We should get Emma home before the roads worsen, James told Victoria, who had joined them near the dessert table. Victoria nodded, but before they could move, the building's emergency system blared to life. Attention! Due to severe weather conditions, the building's primary power has switched to emergency generators. Please remain calm and stay in the building until further notice. The lights flickered ominously. James's expression shifted to concern. That shouldn't happen with the backup system. I need to check the electrical room. I'll come with you, Victoria insisted. Stay with Emma, James countered. I'll be right back. But James didn't return. 10 minutes stretched to 20. The storm intensified outside, snow swirling in violent gusts against the windows. Victoria felt a growing sense of unease. Emma, stay with my father for a moment. I need to find your dad. She wheeled herself toward the service elevator, texting James repeatedly with no response. When the elevator opened on the basement level, emergency lights cast eerie shadows across the corridor. James, she called, navigating her wheelchair through the narrow hallway. A crash sounded from the main electrical room, followed by a pained groan. Victoria's heart raced as she pushed forward. Inside, she found James on the floor, a panel of equipment having fallen across his leg. Sparks erupted from a damaged circuit nearby. Victoria, get out, he shouted when he saw her. The system's overloading. It could start a fire any minute. Instead of retreating, Victoria wheeled herself determinedly to the emergency shutdown panel. Tell me what to do, she demanded. The main breaker, red switch on the left panel. But Victoria, your wheelchair, metal conducts electricity. It's too dangerous. Victoria hesitated for only a second before making her decision. With tremendous effort, she pushed herself out of her wheelchair, collapsing onto the floor. Using her arms, she dragged herself toward the panel, every movement a testament to her determination. James watched in awe as Victoria pulled herself upright against the wall, reached for the switch, and pulled it down with all her strength. The room plunged into darkness before emergency lights activated. The sparking ceased. Victoria, James called, still trapped. Are you all right? I'm fine, she panted, lowering herself back to the floor. Better than you, I think. Security personnel arrived moments later, freeing James and helping Victoria back into her wheelchair. As they were escorted upstairs, James reached for Victoria's hand. You could have been killed, he said softly. She squeezed his fingers. So could you, once upon a time. Seems we're even. Spring arrived in New York, melting the last traces of winter. The Hayes Foundation headquarters bustled with activity as Victoria supervised the launch of their new accessibility initiative. James worked down the hall. His department expanded to include innovative design solutions for people with disabilities. Emma visited often after school, her artwork decorating both their offices. Richard Hayes had changed too. He worked fewer hours, delegated more responsibility, and actually listened during meetings. The company's safety record was now a point of pride in annual reports. In 1 year after their first meeting, James and Victoria stood together at Rockefeller Plaza. The Christmas tree towered above them, just as magnificent as before. But this time, Victoria wasn't crying. This time, Emma danced around them, pointing excitedly at the decorations. Remember when we first met? Victoria asked, looking up at James. You looked so sad, he recalled, his voice tender. Emma couldn't bear it. She saved me that day, Victoria said. You both did. James knelt beside Victoria's wheelchair, taking her hands in his. You saved us too. You built a bridge when anyone else would have burned it. From his pocket, he produced a small velvet box. Last Christmas you were alone. This Christmas, I'm hoping you'll agree to never be alone again. Victoria's eyes filled with tears, happy ones this time, as James opened the box to reveal a diamond ring. Will you marry us? He asked as Emma appeared at his side, bouncing with excitement. Both of us? Victoria laughed through her tears. Both of you? How could I possibly say no to that? As James slipped the ring onto her finger, snowflakes began to fall gently around them. Nearby, Richard Hayes watched from a respectful distance, a smile softening his once stern face. Victoria looked up at the magnificent tree, at the man she loved, at the child who had first offered her a candy cane and changed everything. Merry Christmas, James, she whispered. Merry Christmas, Victoria, he replied as Emma wrapped her arms around them both. And in that moment, beneath the glittering lights of Rockefeller Plaza, 3 broken lives became one whole family, a Christmas miracle built on forgiveness, courage, and the bridge of human connection that can span even the deepest divides.